You're living a below-average life, flipping burgers in a post-apocalyptic scenario, following a zombie outbreak. And despite civilization as we know it crumbling down, money still talks. You get a chance at a $50 million cut from a $200 million operation, and the only thing standing in your way is an army of intellectually advanced zombies. Would you do it? And if you did, would you be able to survive? Taking place in Las Vegas, the story follows Scott Ward, a former mercenary now working at a burger joint. He's hired by casino owner Bly Tanaka to retrieve $200 million from his casino and keep $50 million from it. Problem is, the money is in the most secure safe ever created, and the world is suffering from a zombie outbreak following the collision of a civilian car and a military convoy that was transporting a live zombie, which could have been avoided if anyone was paying attention. Definitely not the best idea though, to be driving with such a high-risk item on public roads. Ward's pretty hesitant, so Tanaka decides to give him some time to think about his offer. Later that night, Ward has a dream and remembers the day he had to kill his only wife, who was infected and had turned into a zombie in front of his daughter. I can only imagine how awkward dinner must have been between the two following that incident. After that dream, Ward contacts Tanaka and tells him that he's in on the operation. He proceeds to gather the people he's worked with before and who we were introduced to earlier in the movie, offering them quite a considerable amount for joining him on the job and promising Van der Rohe and Maria, his two closest friends, $15 million each out of the $50 million profit. After everyone agrees, the newly assembled team heads towards an abandoned warehouse where they meet up with Tanaka, who then explains to them the plan. The team has 32 hours to retrieve the money, then escape using a helicopter located on the top of the casino roof. Everyone seems to be okay with it, except for one of the two extras, Mikey Guzman, one of Scott's recruits brought with him, and decides that he's not having any of that. You can't really blame the dude, as there's not really any much you can do with the money if you're wandering off for the rest of your life as a zombie. And just by looking at them, you can tell that is the most probable outcome. Scott decides to pay his daughter, Kate, a visit, who doesn't seem too thrilled about it. She's reluctant to help her dad when he asks for it, but reconsiders and agrees when he mentions the $15 million they can make out of this and how they would be able to help the people in the camp she lives in. As the team is getting ready, Kate shows up and drives them to camp, where she introduces them to a woman who goes by the name Coyote and is able to get them outside of the camp unnoticed. Kate leaves them to it, but comes back after learning from her friend's kids that their mom, Gita, had left the camp with Coyote in an attempt to get them money, to get them somewhere safe. Kate confronts Coyote with a punch to the face, and upon finding out that Gita had kids, Coyote seems remorseful about what happened, stating that she wouldn't have helped her if she knew she had kids. She also tells her that she never saw them come out of one of the casinos they were in, so she assumed they were dead and left them. Kate tells her father that she wants to go with him, and he refuses at first, but after his daughter threatens to leave the camp alone and possibly get killed trying to look for Gita, he agrees to let her come with them, under the premise she stays under his sight at all times. Coyote decides to bring Porn Stash Dude, the guard, along, who's known for being quite the pervert. She offers him 20 grand for coming to help, and he happily agrees. As they leave and venture off into the quarantine zone, they come across a zombie tiger that's roaming the streets, but doesn't seem to notice them. Coyote decides to get close and intimate with the guard, asking if she can hold his gun, to which he obliges. Not surprisingly enough, she shoots him in the knee and he falls to the ground. Now, I don't know where he thought any of this was going, but I guarantee you, it wasn't anywhere close to what he was thinking of. She explains to the rest of the group that not all the zombies are walking vegetables and that some of them, called alphas, actually do have a high degree of intellect and are willing to allow them safe passage in exchange for a sacrifice. It doesn't take a lot of convincing before everyone agrees to let Pervester Stallone over here die. Moments later, the Queen Alpha, alongside her bodyguard, shows up and they end up dragging the guard to a nearby building called Olympus. There, as the guard is about to be turned into a full-course meal, Zeus, the Alpha leader, shows up and gets a little affectionate with his wife. I'd like to say the scene was cute and that there was some sort of deep symbolic meaning behind it, where even zombies have evolved to develop feelings, but honestly, it was none of that. The romance was short-lived as Zeus decides to take a bite out of his guard's arm, as means to turn him into one of them. After they're allowed safe passage by the Alpha Queen, Ward and his group enter an abandoned building, and as they're walking around, they run into normal hibernating zombies. Coyote tells them to avoid shining any light in their face or touch them to avoid waking them up. Ward decides to use some glow sticks and lay them on the ground as a way to create a path for the others. As they're following the group, Chambers, Mikey's friend, accuses Martin of being up to something when he offers to watch her back. Now, I don't know where in the manual of keeping an eye on someone does it tell the person you're keeping an eye on them, but that is definitely not the way to go, especially in a life or death situation where every step could be your very last. As he gains some distance from her, he throws one of the glow sticks Scott left in a different direction to throw her off the right path, and it works. The problem here is that the man threw the glow stick into a hallway of zombies tighter than a Walmart aisle on Black Friday. So, common sense would tell you to at least try and make sure this is the right path you're walking on. I doubt that anyone slightly bigger than her would have been able to fit down that hall, let alone Scott Ward, who's a buff 6'3" zombie killing machine. As she's making her way down the narrow path, she bumps into one of the zombies, waking them up, and ends up having to stab a couple of them before one of the corpses knocks out the tray of utensils, waking up every zombie near her. She's forced to use her gun, which in return wakes up every zombie in the building, and as she tries to make her way out of the kitchen, gets locked in by Martin. He catches up with the team, and as Mikey is asking him where Chambers is, she comes crashing through the glass windows into the alley everyone was walking down. My question is, why the fuck is everyone just standing there looking at her when they had every opportunity to help and save her? We're talking about trained mercenaries who have put their lives at stake to save some random people from insane zombie hordes. And you're telling me you can't shoot a couple of them and save your friend? And even then, let's pretend that they weren't able to do anything to help her. She had all the time to warn them about Martin, yet decides to yell the obvious, "Run!" and dramatically stare at Mikey for quite the amount of time. I mean, come on. 2 more minutes of that stare down and the sequel to the movie would have come out. Mikey shoots Chambers, hitting the gas tank she was wearing too, blowing her and the whole horde to smithereens. They finally make it to the casino, and when their pilot Marianne makes her way to the roof, she realizes how shitty of a state their getaway heli is in, but still thinks she can fix it. Coyote and Martin, on the other hand, are supposed to be guarding the outside, but instead have decided to take a little detour to bait the Alpha Queen and her bodyguards to where they are. When they do come, Martin is able to trap the Queen, and Coyote kills the bodyguard. Martin ends up decapitating the Queen and explains to Coyote the head, which is still alive by the way, is worth a lot of money and grants the ability to create and control new alphas. I honestly respect the hustle, but if you're gonna be doing shit like that in broad daylight, you might as well hide the body, or at least do it somewhere that's not 30 feet away from a building full of alpha zombies. While they're doing that, the 2 blondies alongside Van der Rohe back at the casino have managed to clear the bottom floor and disarm the trap using a zombie and microwaved hand. Where they got the hand from and whether or not it was a human one shall remain a mystery. For the traps that were supposed to be non-lethal, they did a pretty great job at being lethal. As Marianne turns on the heli, the engine blows up, setting her even further back in repairs and time. Not the most optimal situation, especially when the people downstairs just learned that a scheduled nuclear bomb has been moved up from 32 hours to 1 hour and a half. Scott checks in with her to make sure everything's okay, and for whatever reason, she decides to lie about the situation rather than tell him what's actually going on. I get that you feel confident in your abilities as a pilot and engineer, but now's definitely not the time to be bullshitting your ass off when there's gonna be 10 metric tons of explosives dropping on your head. You should let them know about the situation so that they can think of a backup plan in case shit goes south. They decide to go check up on how things are going with the safe, which messes up the process for Blondie over here, setting them back another 30 minutes. I don't get what Van der Rohe was doing just sitting on the ground, but I'm pretty sure he's aware of how important being silent is, as he's been sitting there with Dieter, Safecracker, the whole time. It shouldn't have been that hard for him to signal to everyone to stay quiet, but instead he just sat there, looking at them like a mongoose as they barged in. Zeus finds his wife's decapitated body and takes her back to Olympus, where he digs out his dead kid from his wife's womb and is pissed at the fact that it was dead. I don't know what he was expecting, considering his wife was missing her head, but we'll let the the man mourn. He signals everyone to launch an attack against Scott and his group, and they all go storming outside the building. Dieter finally manages to crack the safe, and everyone is welcomed by the insane amount of money in there. They bag the cash, and as they're heading out, Ward and Maria decide now is the perfect time to have a heartfelt conversation with less than 50 minutes before they're obliterated off the face of the planet. Now, somewhere along that conversation, Ward realizes Kate is missing. Kate, who had managed to escape, was hiding in the car near Olympus when all the Alphas came storming out. The Alphas stormed the casino, and as the elevator reaches the bottom floor, Maria gets a 180-degree panoramic view of her surroundings before she dies, which pisses Scott off as he ends up slaughtering all the zombies. I'm pretty sure he would have won countless more matches during his time at WWE if he did half of what he did in this movie. Now, while it seems like Maria's death was unavoidable and nothing could have been done about the situation, this all could have been avoided if they kept their guard up. There have been several occasions during the movie where everyone just seems to forget the situation. They're in and let their guard down. If they were careful, kept a safe distance from the elevator with their guns up, they would have had a much better fighting chance, and Maria's death could have definitely been avoided. They realize they can't escape through the elevator, so Martin takes them through a different route. While Van der Rohe and Dieter covered the elevator, Martin uses his key card to open up the entrance in the back, but closes it before anyone manages to climb through. He reveals that Tanaka never cared about the money and that he was solely after the Queen's head, which was worth 10 times more than the $200 million. $2 billion is a lot of money, but I don't understand why the man is shitting on an extra $200 million. It doesn't make any sense why he would just want them dead for no reason when he could have gained some more money. The situation sucks, and there's not much they can do, except there is. But we'll hold on to that for just a bit. For now, let's just focus on what Coyote decides to do, which is saw through the wall of the neighboring room. While she's doing that, Van der Rohe and Dieter end up having to go up against Zeus, who showed up wearing a steel helmet alongside some other alphas. They decide to shoot him in the head, but it's no good as the helmet deflects the bullets, and they end up running out of ammo as those bullets were fired faster than toilet paper sold out during the start of the pandemic. You do not want to be wasting your bullets like that, especially after the first 10 had no effect. You'd want to at least save 1 or 2 for yourself to avoid having to deal with all of that in case things don't go as planned. If they did that, Dieter would have been able to shoot Zeus in the head when he took off his helmet to fight Van der Rohe, which I don't understand why Van der Rohe tried to do it in the first place. Why not just run in the opposite direction and meet up with everyone else? I understand that these zombies are stronger and faster than you, but you stand more of a chance doing that than trying to beat his head into a pulp with your fist. Their friends definitely have the better guns and gear, and let's not forget about the shit ton of grenades Mikey's carrying with him, so I doubt even Zeus would be able to survive the explosion from 1 or 2 of those. Instead, he decides to get into a fist fight with a genetically mutated and much stronger 6'2" zombie. For someone who majored in philosophy, definitely not the wisest decision to make as they have a go at it. Van der Rohe ends up on the losing side and he's about to get bitten. Dieter comes in clutch, slamming Zeus in the head with the hard object and throwing Van der Rohe into the safe before it locks, and Dieter dies himself. As Martin is heading to the roof to escape, he checks the bag for the zombie head, but instead finds a bill counter that Coyote had replaced the head with. Going back to the part where Martin locks the exit, why didn't Coyote just use the head as leverage to try and survive? If he's revealed that it's that important to his boss, I doubt he'd let them die down there with the head when the whole city is gonna be blown to bits. And he really can't threaten them either, as they have the leverage when it comes to numbers and guns. Even if she was being greedy and wanted to keep all the money for herself, that wasn't exactly the best time to be holding out on the rest of your team. Your life is at stake with a shit ton of zombies after you and a nuclear warhead that's gonna be dropping down on you within the next 20 to 30 minutes. So the last thing you want to be doing is wasting more time than necessary. While he's distracted with what's in the bag though, he ends up becoming a chew toy for Valentine, Zombie Tiger. Coyote manages to cut through the wall and they make their way out, but as they're going up to the roof, they end up being attacked by several other alphas. Unfortunately, Mikey ends up being caught and bitten by some, so he's left with no choice but to unpin his grenade, blowing himself, the alphas, and the money all up. As the others make it up to the roof, Marianne manages to get the heli up and going, but as they're going to get on, Zeus catches up. Coyote pulls the queen's head out and threatens to shoot it, and which keeps Zeus at bay for a bit. Why she just yelled at Scott and told him to board the heli without getting on herself, we'll never know. Instead, she gets speared through the shoulder with an iron rod and ends up dropping the queen's head, which kills her for good. Scott and Marianne manage to get away, but Scott tells her to take him to Olympus, seeing as how his daughter is there and she agrees. Kate manages to find both Gita and her friend. After searching through the building, Gita's friend ends up dying though to the now turned zombie bodyguard from earlier. He tries to attack and bite Kate as well, but she manages to blow his brains out. She doesn't get to celebrate though, as Zeus shows up with a few more alphas. She's able to kill all of them, except for Zeus, who charges at her and is about to kill her, before Scott barges in, shooting a grenade launcher at him. They manage to get to the roof of Olympus, where they're shocked to find the heli missing, but Marianne shows up a second later. For some reason, they decide to waste time talking without even getting in the heli, even though there's a nuke dropping on them in less than 5 minutes. That also gives Zeus enough time to catch up and hijack the heli before they manage to escape. To think this all could have been avoided if they have just gotten in the heli as soon as they got the chance to. Scott and Zeus end up getting into a fight with Scott, coming out on top, but not without getting bitten in the process as Kate shoots Zeus in the head. Marianne also gets shot by a stray bullet while the two were fighting, and as she's trying to maneuver the heli, the nuke hits Las Vegas, and the shockwave sends them crashing near the camp, killing both Gita and Marianne. Before he turns into a zombie, Scott gives his daughter a few stacks of cash that he had hidden at the casino with him, telling her to open up her own lobster roll food truck and try to start a new life. As he turns into a zombie, Kate shoots her dad in a dramatic and tear-jerking fashion. The only person left alive besides Kate was Van der Rohe, who survived the nuclear bomb, managed to get out, survive the radiation somehow, find a car, and rent a private jet that's headed to Mexico. This man just does not want to die. However, as he has a drink with the hostesses, he feels wary and goes to the bathroom, only to discover that he's been bitten by a zombie. Method of avoiding threat altogether. That's it as far as the movie goes. And while they did have slim but very probable chances of survival, the group would have been able to avoid all of this if they had thought about one thing, which is why the fuck did they all have to crack open the safe in the first place? If it was Tanaka's casino they were breaking into and Martin was sent with them because of his extensive knowledge of the place, shouldn't he have been able to give the group the code to the safe? I doubt that he would have forgotten it given how important that code is. And even if he did, then that would still leave Martin. It's true that they haven't been to the quarantine zone in quite a while, but it's highly unlikely that both Tanaka and Martin would have forgotten something they would have probably needed to use pretty often. Moreover, despite their lack of trust in him, the group did very little to make sure Martin doesn't fuck them up. Even Marianne pointed out during the movie where she said that he was probably hired to keep tabs on them, and seeing as how Chambers died like that, I would definitely want to have my eyes on this man the whole time. Moreover, probably the deadliest mistake the group constantly keeps making in the movie is letting their guard down. We notice they constantly act like they're not in the middle of a zombie outbreak or that a nuclear head is gonna obliterate them, as they constantly wasted time and let their guard down. Should they have stayed closer with each other and been more communicative? Several, if not all deaths in the movie could have been avoided.